Welcome to another DraftScience video presentation. Welcome. Anyway, so I will be getting to some conversation about kinetic energy and then some about maybe the wind car. But first, I'm having trouble with my YouTube account, my other one. So I did have to post an amendment video here just because people really can't figure out how to go to the website and all that crap. So you kind of need to keep it in the YouTube realm because people only knew how to function inside of their little platforms. It's just so bad. But anyway, so, and the problem is, YouTube says the error is some sensitive something or other. I guess I should try to post what the error actually is. I'll reply to this thing. Just post it here. Yeah, sensitive action blocked because you're attempting a highly sensitive action. We need to be sure it's really you. And it's idiotic. There's been no evil behavior on the account. I can get into the account. I can change the password, but I can't do anything else. I can't upload a video. I can't do anything with the comments. Can't do anything. It's just too stupid. And, part of me just says it's because, YouTube wants my mobile number, and I don't have a mobile number. So, they basically don't even acknowledge the existence of regular phones anymore. They used to be able to send you a voice code, so then you could just put the code in, but you can't do that anymore, apparently. So if somebody knows how to do that, or how to get to the form that allows you to do that, or something. But, the only videos I can find are always in some other language, and you can't understand what the fuck the guy's saying. And, or else it's one of those ones where they just play music and do shit, and you can't even follow along. And way too many steps. I can understand deleting cookies, doing this, doing that, but if you got to change your IP address and do this and do, it's just too complicated. So somebody knows a simple way. It's just too stupid. So I can't access the account. So to me, this is just YouTube being liar. There's no security problem. I mean, if somebody has your email address, if somebody's receiving your email, then they own your account. I mean, that's kind of obvious. And obviously, if I have an email address and a password, I have enough security. It's been enough security for 15 years. I mean, it's the stupid part. I mean, it's the same email address for 15 years. Okay, nothing's changed in the account for 15 years. The password hasn't changed. Nothing's changed for 15 years. Why would this all of a sudden be a problem? There's no security problem. There's nothing. Again, this is just whoring for phone numbers because apparently it has some value in the sense they can send text spam or something. They should be sued for this shit. I mean, this is just bullshit. It's bad enough all the crap you have to put up with. My computer is it's not the new computer's fault. It's the old video card's fault. And it's a cheap video card I got for like $10. And so, it's running a little hot. So I have to fix that. I have another card. It's just that it's the one that needs extra electricity plugged in, and I don't have, the adapter for that, and blah, 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 and I don't want to get one, and I don't really want to do that. And, well, anyway, so I haven't decided which way I'm going to go yet. I mean, either you have cards that are too little power or way too much power for the computer. But anyway, I mean, those little hassles you get. The computer has all kinds of little bugs. You just don't need this harassment, this extra harassment, from these corporations lying to you. Like, oh, I'm doing it for your benefit, for your security. You're not doing it for my security. They could simply give you an offer. Are you satisfied with having a secure email address and a password? Is that enough security for you? And I say, yes. Okay, if somebody steals my email, yes, if they can steal, the ability to steal serving, collecting my emails, then yes, they've stolen my account successfully. Not much I can do about that. So it's yeah, but it's pretty secure. I'm pretty unafraid. So yeah, let it ride. You know, but even having a pin, that's simple enough. But you can't even do that simply. I mean, it's just such bullshit. Anyway, yeah, they want you to sign in on your Android with some code. I don't even use the code on the Android for the very reason that this is just annoying. Why should I have to sign into my own device? I mean, well, anyway. Like I said, all the other harassments. I mean, so I wasted, whatever, 5 hours trying to get into the stupid YouTube account. And you're just like, why am I doing this? Why should I have to waste all this time? They have no customer service at all. There's no way to get to them and say, hey, you know what? Just let me sign into my fucking account. I mean, I'm just saying, how retarded is it? They'll let me change the password. They'll let me go in and change the fucking password, but they won't let me upload a video? Come on. Too stupid. Alright, so that's enough of that. But, it's almost like I'd rather go back, to dial up, internet service, and having to wait 6 hours for a page to load than to be fucked with in this malicious, conniving, stinking, rotten way. I mean, it's one thing when the technology just isn't quite good enough, but this is broken on purpose. And that's disgusting. Anyway, it's disgusting that people tolerate this bullshit. Chicanery. Shenanigans. No one calls it out. No one says anything. They just all play along. Oh, I just keep feeding the corporation. Then some butthead sends me a comment telling me how I've been gamed by Veritasium and TikTok and all this bullshit, when I made overt statements about how retarded it is that Veritasium included this stupid bullshit website with its 1-minute video bullshit. And I signed up only for the purpose of the contest and all that crap, and yet he's accusing me of being duped. How am I being duped? Right? You have to play the game somewhat by the rules they're defining. Okay, but I did it completely hostilely, and I did it without saying anything good about that shit website. So why the fuck are you giving me this accusation that I'm part of the problem? I'm the one complaining about these things, you dumb fuck. You want to point out somebody else doing that or going to the trouble to do it? Yeah, there isn't anybody else. At least I'm saying it sucks. Jesus. Everybody's just such a... Sorry, you're all fucking idiots. So somebody gave me some advice on the computer. Yes, putting a big fan in the, all you have to do is open the case and have a little fan blow on the video card, and that's more than enough. But I really don't want the noise. See, that's the other part I like about running, kind of a light computer, is I don't have to talk over the computer, So, there are some advantages. This is a problem I'll fix. It's just, I know, blah, 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 blah. I really don't want to take the video card apart. It's a cheap little shitty card, cheap little tiny fan. I mean, it's really not much to it. I just don't know if it's worth all that trouble, and I'll see if I can find a better solution. Blah, 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 blah. But thank you. I do appreciate people posting advice. I mean, sometimes it doesn't sound like I appreciate it, but I do appreciate you going to the trouble. Thank you. All right. So I'm sorry about the philosophy crap being on the website. If that bothers somebody, it's just too fucking bad. Right? I don't really care. If it bothers you, it's a more important subject than the physics subject. Is the fact that everybody's living in a delusional happy land where they think they're accomplishing something and their silly little ambitions and all the other bullshit that goes on in human brains. So it's probably more important. But the fact is that this science subject gets you more cred. If you can, win a few battles here. So anyway. So we do have one physics comment. Somebody managed to post something, but it's just so fucking stupid because I've been over it so many times. But no offense. I mean, okay, this is the way you're viewing it because this is the way they've taught you, or this is what you've heard. and you just keep droning the same crap over and over, fine. It's not much I can do about it. So this is the 1 minute video, which is, dangerous to comment on, just because, oh come on, you're not taking, there's not going to be heavy physics in the 1 minute video. I'm just pointing out there's a paradox, So this is part of the problem too, is this guy probably hasn't watched any of the other videos. So, it's just going to be one of these bullshit comments. Alright, isn't momentum a vector quantity? Momentum, okay, isn't very different. Let's just understand that we're not talking about some kind of, apples and rhinoceroses. These aren't things that are completely unrelated. So you have m times v, right? And then the beginnings of the kinetic energy formula, okay, was just m v, and then they squared it, so they just add another v, so it was just vmm. Now, do you really think there's going to be some kind of huge difference between these two things, in the sense that you could call one a vector quantity and one a scalar? They're just mass and velocity. Those are the only ingredients, is mass and velocity. So how can you make orange and rhinoceros? You can't make, this is a vector and this is a scalar. It's just the mass and the velocity, okay? And you kind of got to know that the way we understand energy is that the energy we see, transferred, is just by, we see motion transfer, right? And if it's, some other kind of thing happening, like pressure in a vessel or heat, we understand that the vectors are going in all directions. Now maybe you don't understand that as what's happening with heat, but that's all it is. It's still a vector of heat. It's just that the vectors are in all directions. So, like an explosion. An explosion doesn't have one vector, right? So an explosion, I don't say, this vector is the only part of the explosion. This is the only energy. Whatever mass and whatever velocity is going this way, that's the entire explosion. No, there's mass and velocity going all these directions. So if you want to count the energy of the entire explosion, yeah, that's going to be a scalar. That's going to be something where you have to add up the whole thing. But the vector is going to be the part that influences a particular object here. Okay, the explosion that goes this way isn't going to affect an object going this way. It's not going to give it momentum. Not going to give it kinetic energy. Oh, my bad. Alright. So, it's just kind of bullshit to sit there and use this scalar versus, then later on they added the half, by the way. Okay. So obviously a half doesn't change something from a scalar to a vector. You could sort of understand that. So, we understand the kinetic energy and motion is always in a direction. You don't understand it anyway. The car has kinetic energy when it's rolling down the street in a direction. It's a vector. You're not fooled, are you? You don't think the car has energy going this way and energy going this way and energy going this way. You know it has energy going in one direction, the direction of the motion. And that if once I make the collision, then I'm going to have energy going in all kinds of directions. Then it's going to turn into a scalar. Then it's going to get complicated. But it's not complicated before the collision. Come on. And the same is true of the momentum. The momentum's going to get complicated. It's going to become a scalar. It's not going to be a vector. You think the vector of momentum is, you're going to have a straight line vector of momentum in a car crash? Of course not. You're going to have two objects that are going to leave at maybe, 10% of their the original momentum. And that 90% of the energy, the momentum, is going to be going in all kinds of pieces, flying in all kinds of directions. So why are you playing this game? Why are you falling for some notion that there's something intrinsically different between momentum and the magical kinetic energy when it's the same exact ingredients? Come on. I shouldn't have to keep doing this shit. But anyway, I do apparently have to keep doing this shit. Alright, that is, an object moving backward will have negative momentum. So now again, so you really think there can be such a thing as negative momentum? I mean, negative heat or negative, it can either just be an absence of it. There can't be any such thing as a negative momentum, just as there isn't a negative kinetic energy. So again, if there's an explosion and stuff is going in all directions, do you really think the piece of, if I explode a pipe bomb, do you really think the piece of the pipe bomb that's flying this way, the little piece here and the little piece here, are canceling each other out? That the guy who gets his, head, he's sitting there and his head gets flown off by the piece of crap that cuts his frickin' head off? You think that didn't really happen because there was some negative energy that went this way, and therefore there was zero energy, and it was zero energy that cut his head off? I mean, what are you thinking? The kinetic energy or the momentum is in the actions, and there's no such thing as negative. All right? There's just a point of view where you can say, okay, I'm going to decide this is called positive, and I'm going to decide anything going this way that has a negative component, just for the purpose of evaluating actions and reactions, like the gun and the bullet. But I mean, here, that's a perfect example, really. So if I make a simple kind of gun, okay, so see, this is another, I pointed out, but I can't remember whether it was Remington or Winchester or somebody invented, a good army gun, okay, and it was actually a prisoner. He built the gun in prison, which was kind of interesting. And so anyway, but the idea is that, it could, it shot the shell out, all right, and then reloaded the new bullet, and, it did all this stuff with the energy from the gun, right? So from shooting the bullet, from the explosion, it takes the energy going this way, the recoil energy, and instead of just letting it go fly out of the gun, it uses the energy to shoot the shell out and pop the new shell in and reload the trigger. So, and the trick is that, it was a great gun, very light, very all this stuff, but the only negative side was it had more recoil. Okay, so, you had to handle it carefully because it recoiled. Okay, and the recoiled, why? Because you were stopping the opposite reaction. You were forcing the opposite reaction to stay in the gun, and therefore cause the gun to react because you're using the force, and you're going to have some friction in your use of the force. You can't use the force to expel the shell and do all this stuff without some waste. So when you try to use energy, there's usually going to be some friction. You're trying to do this, a straight line, and there's going to be a little, unfortunately, little thises and that's that are going to come off that straight line. So when you try to use energy, you often spread it, okay, and create heat and other things. Anyway, so it's kind of a good example of how physics is just so full of shit. I mean, the way they explain things is just so bad. So this other example I would use is, let's say I just make a gun, and all there's a charge here in the middle, and I have a bullet that goes this way, and I have a bullet that goes this way. All right, so I explode the charge, I put a little fuse in there, boom, I explode the charge, and I got a bullet going this way, a bullet going this way. Now the gun doesn't recoil because I'm not collecting the energy, right? I'm not collecting energy from this bullet or this bullet. And so all it's going to do is get hot here, and expand, but it's just going to shoot the two bullets out. So do you really think this bullet, okay, flying through space is going to cancel this bullet? Somehow this bullet doesn't have momentum and it doesn't have energy because I've decided to call this negative direction and this positive direction. I mean, come on. You really can't fall for that, can you? Can you really sit there and tell me, because we're calling it a vector quantity. Well, which one's the vector? Is this the vector or is this the vector? Is this the plus and this the minus? Come on, you're just playing a game with assigning plus and minus. This is positive momentum and this is positive momentum, and it just happens to be that we've sent positive momentum in both directions. That does not mean this was free. It didn't take no energy required. So I didn't have to create an explosion. I can just magically have the two bullets shoot out because it's zero energy. It's not zero energy. any movement is energy. There's no negative energy. Crap. All right. That is, an object moving backwards will have negative momentum. So again, there is no such thing as negative momentum. Baby talk, nonsense. The 30% momentum that looks like it has, appears from nowhere, is canceled out by the negative momentum in the backward moving object. So again, that's as silly as saying you cancel out the bullet with the recoil of the gun. You don't cancel the bullet. You're not allowed to say that. If I make the bullet go faster, I have to account for where the energy came from to make it go faster. It can't go faster for no reason. So momentum is indeed conserved. So this is just absolute nonsense. Clearly it's not conserved. So again, I'll explain it one more time. Interested to hear what you think. I think this is just, I think I shouldn't have to explain this to you. That's what I think. But apparently I do. All right, so here's the paradox again, provided by the Professor Lewin experiment that just creates, some sort of, it either makes the free energy nuts look really lame because they haven't been able to discover this free energy thing, or it makes regular physics look like corrupt nonsense. All right, so the simple experiment is, okay, I have a one mass object and I have a two mass object, all right, and I have a spring on each one. Now, even though they are already elastic objects, that is, they're hard, I have to put a spring on them to make them extra elastic. Super elastic, perfect elastic. Anyway, and so I just shoot this one in with any old velocity. Doesn't really matter, but we'll just say velocity of 2, just to make things easy. So it has a mass of 1, and it has a velocity of 2. And what you would expect, if it was trains or other things, blah, 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 you would expect that this leaves with, velocity 1 because it has mass 2. Okay, so, and then it equal, mass 2, velocity 1. You said velocity 1, but you wrote velocity 2. All right, so that's the expectation. But instead, okay, this goes 2/3. Okay, 2/3 the velocity this way. All right, and this leaves this way at 1/3 the velocity. So I've gained, okay, momentum. If you look at it as a momentum exchange, I had 100 momentums here, quite obviously, as I've pointed out so many times. I'm getting 30 going this way and after the experiment, and I have 130 going this way. I have 100. Yeah, I have to think about, well, it's 2/3, so let's say I have 125. Okay. All right, so I have too much. I have too much energy. I should only have a total energy of momentum of 100, and I have 160 or something. And direction is irrelevant. Just like in the bullet example, you're just using an explosion. You're using an event to create movement. Okay, and so you put a certain amount of movement in, and somehow you have more movement out. And it just doesn't have anything to do with scalar or vector. It has to do with just following the momentum. We know it's not a bunch of heat. We know we didn't lose a bunch of energy here. And we know we have gained movement in the universe. There's extra movement in the universe after the event than there was before the event. And that's what has to be explained. So you either understand that the spring actually uses energy twice, that is, you compress the springs for free, all right? It doesn't slow anything down, doesn't use up any energy. This object ends up pushing this object 1/2 the velocity. And then the spring's compression, which you got for free, pushes it the extra 1/3 and the extra 1/3 because the spring stored that energy. But this is paradoxical. It, like I said, you just keep increasing the size. I make this twice this one's mass, and I gain another, pile of momentum moving in this direction. This bullet starts going faster and faster relative to its mass. So I keep making an object that if I put it on a lever, okay, the object is getting heavier and heavier. It's putting more force on the lever. So therefore I can fling something on the other side faster and faster by putting it out here on the lever. I can make something have faster and faster velocity because I'm making an object that's heavier, but it has too much velocity. It's gaining velocity. Its mass to velocity ratio is creating more and more momentum. Momentum is energy. Momentum makes things move. So in effect, all I have to do is keep increasing this mass, keep doing the experiment, and eventually I'll create enough energy to restart the same experiment 4 times. I'll have 3 times the momentum. I'll be able to put 3 one masses on this lever, and I'll be able to hit them with this one big object, and I'll cause all 3 of these to leave with 100 momentum, and I can just restart the whole thing with now 3, and I can multiply it, and it's all free. It's free. I can just create as much energy as I want by just creating a mechanism to convert the energy, convert the momentum. It's a problem. It's a physics problem. Okay, and the answer isn't, well, I'll just pretend the bullets cancel each other out because I'll call one of the bullets negative and I'll call the other bullet positive. And therefore, they didn't happen. They're not real bullets. Yeah, they are. I mean, so if I use the bullet analogy, your problem is that you have, one explosion, okay? You have one event. And what do you have coming out of the event, okay? It's a real inequity, okay, in your energy. See, there's no way I can really do it, though. I mean, it's just like saying the heavy bullet coming out of the one side, okay, and you have a light bullet coming out of the other side. But see, even that's not going to describe it. Just saying, you can't have the same explosion, okay, and now you have more momentum here. This one's going, instead of going, it's twice the mass, this bullet, of this bullet. You can't expect to have a gun that's capable of shooting this one 2/3 of this one's velocity when it weighs twice as much. You know that the explosion is going to be even. So how can you have more momentum in this bullet than you have in this bullet? That violates Newton's third law. So you're done. It can't really work. Good enough. All right. So I'll post a link to this video, I guess, as the answer. But anyway, all right. So in other news, I did have a conversation with, of all people, Warbles on a lot, who I really don't get along with very well. But anyway, so on Piro's video, in this comment thread by BitVictim, there's explanations. So Warbles on a lot provides an explanation, blah blah blah. So I challenge him to provide a little more. He does, which is good. He answers my question. Then I point out what I'm seeing, and then he agrees fundamentally and whatever. So it's an agreeable conversation. But one of the parts that I thought was interesting is here's the pitch of the blade. So now he says, I now remember them saying something about adjusting the pitch of the blades. If they started with the blades flat, there would be little resistance to their spin, and it would maximize the surface area the wind can push against. So if the blades are this way, instead of being pitched, if I have if I take a fan blade and I just make it flat, you can sort of understand that it isn't going to have, there's spinning doesn't make any difference. The wind blowing on it it doesn't care if you spin it, okay? Only in the sense that it still has resistance to a wind blowing, but it doesn't make any wind, and so there'd be no torque against it turning. But if I try to turn a blade, then I have to push wind. And if I'm pushing the wind, that's a pressure against the motion, which means that's a reason the wheels wouldn't turn. So the only way this thing gets off the ground, that is the only way you can start this car, is that you have to have the pitch of the blades on the fan flat, so they're just a surface for the wind to hit. And it isn't until you start gaining momentum, okay, you start rolling, that you can start adjusting the pitch of the blade to start pushing air. Now the trick is, the other part that I found a little bit interesting is, as you're moving the fan in the direction that you're trying to pull air, your ability to pull air doesn't mean anything anymore. So if I had a fan blowing this way, right? So the fan's blowing that way, and I start moving the fan this way, the opposite direction that it's blowing, you could sort of understand that the wind it's producing becomes zero, right? So if I move the fan as fast as the wind I'm producing by the fan, then all of a sudden there's no pressure being created by the fan. So that would be a limiting factor until, in terms of how fast this thing can go, is that it has to be able to find a differential between that. Now the other thing to consider is what happens in free fall. So this thing can't get into like no atmosphere, and so it's able to fly through very little air. It's on the ground, so it's stuck in a lot of atmosphere. So it's going to have a terminal velocity. That is the object. If you take the fan out, because now we know the fan is almost turning invisible because I'm moving it in the same direction I'm spinning it, which means it can't create any high pressure in front of it. It can't create any low pressure in front of it or high pressure behind it because it's spinning in the same direction it's going. So it won't be producing any drag. That's the good news. So it's really just about that ratio of how fast the thing's spinning versus how much pressure, air pressure, it can push in the opposite direction. And there's just this subtle little room you have to work with. And then you fall into the problem of, as you start going faster, you start running into more drag. So drag does drag you to a halt, right? So ultimately, the drag of the atmosphere will take away what the wind is producing. Just like you reach terminal velocity when you're falling, because the atmosphere becomes impossible to penetrate with the little bit of gravity you're getting added each time. It's not enough to overcome the drag, so you can't gain any velocity. You just stop going faster. There's a point where the car stops going faster because the drag of the car overwhelms the 10-mile-an-hour wind that you're really tacking against, that you're really going sideways against. But anyway, there's an awful lot to it, and it's unfortunate that they really didn't explain any of that. So the trick was, this very bad comparison of the car on the treadmill, because the car on the treadmill can't change the pitch of its blade. So this is just a model. So that's a big limitation. That's why it can't start from zero, and it's not in wind. So it can't be pushed by wind on the flat blades. So the pitch of the blades has to be fixed. So that's why it's kind of a limited example. And it would be best to do the test in a wind tunnel, and then see how important the pitch of the blades is. But that's really is the key to the thing, is that it would never get started if they couldn't change the pitch of the blade. So they're just making the blade flat, and they're turning it as they're slowly increasing it as they're gaining speed. There's a perfect amount that they keep increasing the pitch until they get to a final pitch that's the most they can get out of it, And so, at one point I say the maximum speed might be 10 or 20 times the wind speed, but no, it's going to be a lot less than that, because they're going to run out of pitch first. You can only pitch it, 45 degrees or whatever, to be effective, and then it's going to run out of, it's going to be dragged by the fact that with the increases in velocity, it's got more force against it. Its forward progress, it's going to reach a terminal velocity. So anyway, it's probably enough on that. I mean, we've already have done, but all of these explanations are a little bit incomplete in terms of really getting to what's pushing who. So the car clearly starts because of the surface area of the blades collecting the wind and just pushing the wheels. So the wheels initiate the first movement of the propeller, but the propeller isn't pushing until they change the pitch of the blade on the propeller. And they can't do that until they have momentum, or an ability to sustain the turning of the blade, to overcome the blade's resistance once you start catching real wind. Yeah. Well, anyway. The channel is called Draft Physics, so some of the conversations are going to have parts that are dead ends, that aren't right, and then parts that are getting to the real gist of it. I just say that it does get to the gist of how the thing starts rolling, and why the car that's actually the wind car has to be able to change the pitch of the blade, or it won't work. So if they make a model and put in a wind tunnel, it's not going to work, all right, unless they can change the pitch of the blade, or else they have to get it up to speed. That is, they have to hold it in the wind until the propeller really starts moving, and then put the wheels on the ground. So there's catches to this. Anyway. Alright, I think maybe I'll just call that a video. So I'll pause and think about it, but I think that's enough. Alright, I guess that's enough. So, till the next time. This has been a DraftScience video presentation and such.